This is 3FM.
I'm a passionate Manxman, very proud of what the Isle of Man's achieved. I want to see government continuing to plan for the longer term, helping the island to develop for the longer term, not just short term. I think the island's been through an incredibly difficult time. There's evidence of declining population as well as the financial issues we've faced. But I think that there's a need for a whole series of balances in place. I don't think it's as simple as balancing the budget. I think we've got to balance a number of social things and balancing in particular these population issues I've referred to. Population should dominate the election along with the economy, both government income and government spending. And I think those two are completely interlinked, really. When the Isle of Man is having a strong population growth, the economy grows. When the population has declined in the past, the economy has been very badly hit. And I don't think it's always the case that just the population follows the economy. I think the population can sometimes impact on the economy very heavily. So I think at the moment where it is clear that since 2011, the last full census that's been reported on, we've seen population growth tail off and then some decline. And that depopulation is a huge threat to the island in many, many ways. But it's the causes behind that depopulation that I'm most concerned about, because I think that although we've had strong economic growth here, many people are feeling that the money in their pocket has been reduced. They're feeling that it's a really difficult time here, and there's strong evidence of young families leaving. I think that the government needs to be more confident in some of the actions it's taking and needs to look to build both population and the economy simultaneously. I think there'd be two areas, if I was elected, that I'd be very keen to see something happen at an early stage. I'd want to see clarity about population policy. At the moment, we've got an enterprise development fund that's talking about bringing in 1,000 people a year to the Isle of Man, 1,000 workers a year. I think that needs to be a much broader policy that looks at bringing in people to the Isle of Man, because these are not just workers, these are people who have children and they're interested in schools and nurseries and so on. And all of those things have to be working the same way for population growth to take place. So I think a review to clarify what our population aims are, to ensure that we remove those policies that actually at the moment work against families, and to make sure that we find ways to encourage our young people to remain or return and make the aspects of the island attractive for in particular young families, young people. If we have a low spending government, one of the things perhaps that's been happening over these last 5 years is a number of areas where government has been cutting its expenditure. And okay, if your income is less than your outgoing, you've got to cut expenditure somewhere. But some of the ways that we have done that, for example, we had some changes, not initially for financial reasons, but changes in the nursery provision within the Isle of Man for young parents. And we've now got ourselves into a position where even with the slight increase that was given in Tynwald last month, if you make comparisons, in the UK, if you've got a 3-year-old or 4-year-old, you're getting 15 hours a week in each of those 2 years of free early years education. And in the UK, they're trying to extend that to 30 hours a week provision. The value of 30 hours a week provision is £10,000 per child. We've managed to increase our 800 to 1,500, but that is still nowhere near there. If we're trying to attract young families to the Isle of Man and they've got children in those age groups, they will weigh up the differences, and that's important. So I think there are areas where we have to get this balance right. Okay, we need a government that's efficient and effective in its spending, but we mustn't make cuts that actually damage the population and have perhaps contributed to some population reduction. Agriculture is a key area on the island. It's a significant contributor to the economy, 75 million a year, maybe 1,300 people working in it directly and indirectly. And I'm hugely aware at the moment that there are farmers out there who are really struggling, really struggling. It's easy to look at the subventions that are there and then somehow believe that they must be making big money, but many of them are working very long hours, and it's not for good rates of returns, and they're worried and There's uncertainty over the future of the meat plant. The Brexit issue has created new uncertainties, although there is some hope that that might create new opportunities in relation to its impact on imports and the levels of subsidy of food that we compete with and so on. So the issues are there, and I think it's hugely important that agriculture is listened to at this stage.
More music for the Isle of Man.
3FM.